Hello, good morning. We are doing a little special video today. I normally don't film videos, especially today on this like specific day of the week. But uh I wanted to do a little tour of the zoo I have made. I have created what I have named the Explore Appalachia Zoo. It's an Appalachian themed mini zoo. I have tried really hard to get it to 5 stars, but with such a small variety of animals, considering I only did animals that are found in the Appalachian region, um, it's not really working out. Just because I don't have that large variety that Planet Zoo looks for when it comes to the animal rating and reputation. Uh, but everything else is up to 5 stars, so that's good enough for me, and we are just barely below that 5 star range. Um, I uh, worked for a few days on this zoo. Um, I would have made like a series out of it, but I didn't really feel like doing that because right now I do a lot of builds using blueprints that are pre-made, and I really wanted to work on building on my own and not using blueprints, and so I wanted to really focus on that and not really have to worry about the pressure of everything else. The zoo is literally a circle. When you look at the map, it's just one giant circle with a little bit of cut throughs and stuff on the way. But we're going to go in the order of kind of how I built things. So we're going to ignore the donkey exhibit at the moment. But first we have like this little, I guess you could say like a little entryway plaza. And we do have a bullfrog exhibit. This is actually one of the only this is the only block exhibit that we have here. We do have one walkthrough exhibit, but this is the only block exhibit. I tried to do the rattlesnake, but they have the western rattlesnake. In Planet Zoo, they don't have the one that is found in the Appalachian region, so it's in like a deserty themed exhibit, and it just didn't really go with the fact that this is a very North American temperate themed zoo. So, and I tried to do a walk through like one of the modular shops, but it just broke for some reason, and I said screw it and just put in like a memento and a Hat's Fantastic. One thing I have noticed with Hat's Fantastic and Looney Balloons, and a lot of the other uh, I want to say shops, is that the like merchandise is very themed towards like your typical African animal like hits, and not really towards any other type of animals that you would find in a zoo, especially like a zoo like this. So that is kind of a bummer because like you have people walking around with tarantula and like red crowned cranes and stuff like that, but not really anything that you would find in the zoo. I did put a little conservation education board on amphibian extinction crisis next to our only amphibians in our zoo. And then the first habitat that I built in here was actually the red fox habitat. And I did put one about poaching in the exotic pet trade because foxes are actually highly affected by that. And most of our foxes are actually not red. We have quite a few leucistics. And we have one red fox named Elk in here, but we also have some melanistic ones. This one's also named Elk. I didn't really work on like naming the animals, but I did really try to focus on making the habitats look a lot like habitats that you would find in real life zoos. So like I built these little shelters myself, and they are based off of like shelters that you would find if you looked up fox exhibit or fox enclosure. And then of course we do have like the little burrows and stuff that we built in. But yeah, this was the first exhibit that I made, and I actually managed to do this zoo without having to take out any loans, which was super nice. Which means like that's a huge thing for me because normally I do have to take out loans in the very beginning because I use too much money. Um, this guy, I love it. Um, the second exhibit that I built, well, enclosure, was our timber wolf habitat. Um, and there are two different viewing points. So we do have this viewing point here where you can kind of see them down in here. We do have quite a large wolf pack going on right now. Most of them are adults now. We did have a few cubs before, but I think they all just aged up, actually. But yet again, I try to make my habitats as realistic as possible, while also making them as like natural. I don't really like having them be super like modern and stuff. I like my habitats to be very like much like what the animals would experience out in the wild as close as possible anyway, because you can't always get all of that in zoos because you do have like the building restraints and everything. But if you continue going this way around the zoo, we'll get to the cougar exhibit in a minute. There's actually a little cave that you can go into to get into our lovely viewing domes in this habitat, which I really like this cave. I think it's really cool. If I was a kid and I was coming to a zoo, I feel like I would really enjoy walking into a cave like that to go look at wolves. This is kind of like an education center that I set up for our timber wolves. They were our first like big animal in our zoo. So we do have the population fragmentation one, just because that is something that happens a lot in the Appalachian region because we do indeed live there. So of course when humans live there, there's going to be some population fragmentation. We do have a vista point that people can take pictures of because like that'd be awesome. And then of course our animal talk point. I have this little paw station here. Yet again, it covers a lot of different animals that aren't in our zoo, but it's still something that I feel like fit very well with the fact that it was a giant paw. And then I also have the deforestation board right here, just because timber wolves are yet again affected by deforestation. And some people might say that timber wolves aren't in Appalachia. They are in the most northern part of Appalachia. In the part of Appalachia that I'm from, which is why I did this zoo, because it's an area that I'm really familiar with. I'm from Kentucky, and so we don't have timber wolves in Kentucky. Our primary predator is actually the cougar. A lot of high schools have their team mascot as the cougar, and one of my high schools was indeed that high school that had that. Also, this was literally brown yesterday. I don't know why it's suddenly green, but we will quickly change that. We do have our cougar habitat. That was our next big habitat that we built. I don't know where my cougars are though. They are hiding at the moment. Where are we at? Oh, there they are. We do have two little cubs right now. Yet again, a very basic habitat that still has literally all the enrichment items available and all the places that they can climb and everything. But it's still very basic. I did put in a bathroom here because people were starting to complain about not having a bathroom. And we do have an animal talk point on the cougar just because they are a pretty big animal. Not to pass it up just because it is really cool, I did put a ecological restoration thing here because I do have like a little like pond area that kind of surrounds the next big thing that we have in this habitat. I haven't really played around, in the zoo, I haven't really played around with the walkthrough habitats a lot, like the exhibits. And so the fact that I had two species of butterfly here, the monarch butterfly and the cloudless sulfur, to play with, I really wanted to do like a walkthrough butterfly garden that wasn't encased. Like I wanted it to be like this place had been built for butterflies to want to inhabit, and so we have 45 of each species in here. And they've been pretty self-sufficient, as most exhibits are. And I also did put the bee population decline here because there's nothing really about butterflies on the education boards, but bee population is also really important, and they are yet again another pollinator that helps a lot with things, so I figured it was perfect to put it in here with our bees, because this is just kind of like a pollinator garden, really, if you really think about it. I did put like a water place here and a little restaurant. I'm still working on getting good at building restaurants. I think I definitely need to get better. It's not like perfect, but it is a nice little restaurant that people can come and eat at. And I also put this lovely repair the ozone layer here because planting a lot of plants and stuff actually does help with that. This was one of the last habitats I actually put in here. Nine-banded armadillo is not very common in the northern region of Appalachia, but it is pretty common in the most southern regions of Appalachia due to the location. So we do have some little nine-banded armadillos in here. She's actually pregnant with babies. And yet again, this one has a little bit more sand than the other regions, but it is still able to be a temperate and, what am I thinking? Temperate North American habitat. So this is all temperate trees. All of the trees and foliage in the zoo are all temperate. It does not go anywhere out of that. So it is a very set temperate North American zoo. And then this habitat was originally a 3-species habitat that had beavers, raccoons, and skunks. But the beavers were being kind of finicky and wanting a whole lot of hard shelter, and so it was making it really hard, and just the habitat was not looking as good as I wanted it to. And so I just split them up into 3 different habitats. But this is our beaver exhibit. I did build like sort of a beaver dam. It's not the prettiest, but I attempted, and I also built them some shelters like this because they can't really fit in the ones that I built for the foxes, so I built that shelter option for them. And it's very basic, it's very open. It's just like a little lake kind of for them to, or a little pond really for them to hang out in and swim. And right behind them is the raccoon habitat. This is by far one of my favorite habitats in this zoo. I really like how I did it. I try to make it look kind of like a river, but not really. And we do have quite a few melanistic raccoons in our zoo, and some leucistic ones, and we have some regular ones in here somewhere. They're just better at hiding. But I did build this structure just because I needed a lot of climbing space and a lot of hard shelter, because yet again, raccoons also need a lot of hard shelter, so I wanted to make a hard shelter that you could also climb and use. So we do have this very lovely habitat. I have enjoyed so far. It was by far one of my favorite ones to build because I feel like filling out this like wetland marsh kind of looking area. It's not even a wetland marsh because you don't really have those in Appalachia. But just like making this look really nice and like filled out was really nice and fun. And most of the enrichment items are pulled up to the front, just so that they are up front so that the guests can see that. Oh, here's one of our regular raccoons. And she is actively giving birth, actually. But our second to last habitat, you'll see some staff buildings thrown in here randomly, and I'll show you the main staff building here at the end. But we did have our little skunk habitat. I actually think they're both hiding. Oh no, here's one. This is our male. Our female is leucistic, but I think she is currently in a den. Oh no, she's right here. But this is our little skunk habitat. They're super easy for hard shelters because they do burrows. So I just built some little burrow covers and put them in there and just kind of filled it out. I really filled out the back area just because they are so small, and so small in number. You can only have 2 adult skunks in a habitat at once, or they start fighting. I did fill out the back to get their coverage, and then left the front pretty open, kind of like you're just looking in through like a clearing. But our last habitat, so the American standard donkey isn't like a wild animal in Appalachia, but they can be found in Appalachia in farms and stuff. And I did want to play around with the new animal encounter exhibits and enclosures. So I figured I would put in the American standard donkey just because they are pretty common. Them and mules and horses and stuff are pretty common in Appalachia, and chickens, but I didn't really want to deal with chickens at the time. Just because there are farmers in Appalachia and they do need work horses and work animals, and so donkeys are pretty common. So I do have this. This is our main male. He is Elton, and he is very cool. He has fathered quite a few of these donkeys, actually. Like Millie, both of the Millies are his daughters, and we have one other that's one of his daughters, but this is one of his mates, but I think this is one of his daughters. Yeah, Sophia. But this is a very small little like walkthrough. I did put a thing about domestication in here because they are a domesticated animal that are not originally from Appalachia. And they do have a little barn. It's a very simple barn. I didn't go into a lot of detail of like putting decoration and stuff in here because I do kind of wish that with this new update I could specify places that guests weren't allowed to go into habitats. Like maybe like draw like a barrier for guests that animals could still go through, animals and staff could still go through. Just because it would be still kind of nice to have like backstage areas that guests cannot go into. Because that's what you would get in a normal petting zoo. Like normally in the petting zoo, you're able to be out here in like the yard area, but you're not allowed to go back into the barn. Just because the barn is where the animals get like respite from the guest. But yeah, like I said, it literally just circles back around. It's like one big circle. And I do have a staff building literally right at the entrance. We're gonna ignore the fact that the willow tree is going into the building, but yeah, this is the first habitat I built because it went right off of the staff area, and I also just did a quick little staff building, and most of the staff buildings in this zoo are very similar. So like there's a staff building over this way right next to the restaurant that just has another like keeper hut and staff room and little like a little research center for everybody, and then there's one more between the skunks and the raccoons over here. That's just very small, that just has a power and a staff room and a keeper hut, just so that we have a little bit of space. I don't have any work zones in this zoo, but yeah, this is like the first zoo that I really tried. I didn't use any blueprints that were not my own, and of course any of the blueprints that I did use were blueprints that I made while actively building the zoo. I do have some lighting things in here. I just have a bunch of area lights hidden under the ground to light up the space, just because in my opinion that's one of the best lights you can have in this game. A lot of the other lights don't really work very well, in my opinion, but maybe I'm just not using them right. But I did do this, and I think it took me about 3 days to really build this. This was kind of like my escape for a few days to just kind of vibe. But yeah, and I did forget to point out that I do have this little like area here for food and drink, and just using the bathroom, and I did put this climate change thing here. But yeah, that is the Explore Appalachia mini zoo. I didn't really build out any farther. I did like fill in places so you couldn't really see the big empty space behind it. And I didn't put like a lot of mountains actively in the zoo because the idea is that the zoo is built into like a valley within the mountains and not really, which is why it's small, because I mean, if you're building into a valley, you don't have a lot of space to really build around. Um, but yeah, this is the Explore Appalachia Zoo, and thank you for joining me for this very, very lovely tour. I will see you guys later. I do not know what or when my next Planet Zoo tour will be. It's just whenever I get zoos done. And I do plan on doing videos of building like an actual zoo at some point. And most of these zoos are going to be in franchise mode just because I'm trying to build up my skills in franchise mode. But thank you guys for joining me. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and bye bye.